Great. We have today. I'm super proud. We have three amazing speakers. Agnieszka, I hope I pronounce your name in the correct way, and is amazing artist. And Valerie, she has done amazing project, and I want her to introduce more later. And also Mark from Asian Art Museum from San Francisco, and she is the creative director. And also my great friend James from San Jose Institute of Contemporary Art of San Jose director. And very happy to have you guys here. And how about you guys introduce yourself and why are you excited to be in this panel?
Hi, Agnieszka Pilat. Thank you for being here. I'm an artist, and I come from classical training, and I guess my thing is to combining classical training with the most cutting edge technology. So I like hooking up with big companies like SpaceX, Agility Robotics, Apptronik, Boston Dynamics, of course. So that's what I do.
Awesome. So I'm Mark. I would say that I like my positioning in this because I identify, I would say, like as a digital artist and also as a museum professional. So that's essentially a lot of my life. So I work at the Asian Art Museum. A lot of the work that I focus on there is focused on like digital content, technology, immersive experiences that we've started to introduce into the museum. And yeah, as a digital artist, I work a lot sort of in like Web3 space, blockchain stuff, but also with a lot of like generative AI tools and stuff like that. And so yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of this. And like I said, I think this is a really good place for me to be as far as seated up here. So.
My name is James Leventhal. I'm the executive director of the ICA down in San Jose. Like Mark, I'm really thrilled to be sitting just sort of right here. Mark and I have known each other for many, many years. I can't encourage you enough to try and get to the Asian Art Museum right now and to see some of the interactive and digital experiences that he's created as part of drawing in visitors to the real meaningful content of the 1,000-year-old art that's up there right now in the most particular in the exhibition that they have up. And I'm a huge fan of Agnieszka's work, and we've never actually met before. So Patty, thanks so much for bringing us together. At the ICA, a lot of what we do is we feel like the use of technology is something that's really become truly a kind of lingua franca. It's the way in which we all communicate today. So in all of the exhibitions that we've been doing since I took over the reins a little over 2 years ago or so, there's always some kind of technology component, whether in the actual presentation or creation of the art, or even in terms of just other ways that we're creating interpretive or experiential elements of what we have on display.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys, and welcome again to this panel. And as an artist and also curators, I know you guys have seen a lot, right? But I want you to pick and share a project you've done probably by yourself, Agnieszka, or just like curated the most, the exciting project you have seen so far leveraging tech. Agnieszka, do you want to go first?
Well, of course, it's my project. Let me tell you about it. I just launched in December a very big show at the National Gallery of Victoria in Melbourne. And in that show, we had 3 quadruped robots creating work autonomously for 4 works. What excites me about that show is that it really marks historically what's happening right now. So I like to think about technology and robotics and that intersection of atoms and bits right now that's happening, that this is a moment in history when this new civilization is being born. So the whole show really evolves around the language the robots are creating. And I think of this as almost not like ancient glyphs, but modern glyphs. So this is a moment in history when there is new civilization, you see new language coming on, and these robots are creating that language. So the language in that work is the most exciting part for me.
Wonderful. Yeah, how about Mark?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to follow your lead there because I think that if I'm being honest with myself, whatever I'm most excited about is like probably the last thing I did, or like the next thing I'm about to do, or, contribute to, or something like that. I was lucky enough to basically have this online collection, but also physical exhibition in Berlin with this group that's named, with gallery that's called Expanded Art. They do a lot, once again, a lot, especially still now in the Web3 space. And essentially what was exciting for me about that project and that process is, in my own creative process right now, I'm I'm very connected to making video games. So I develop, I would say I do a lot of indie development of games. Some of them I release, some of them I don't. But the thing is, I think just as a mode of creation for myself right now, it feels really comfortable. I think when I sit down on my computer to create, even for the museum, for instance, I usually just open up Unreal or Unity and then start building from there. So if I start to write, if I start to code, if I start to even design in 3D, open up Blender or something, it sort of all starts there. So it's interesting because approaching this collection, I actually was well, I'm not going to be able to develop a game that for this necessarily, but what I then started to do was actually look at my games. I started to think about a lot of content. I have young children, so I'm always thinking about what's happening on YouTube or these different distribution platforms. And for young people, one of the most popular things are Let's Play, just watching people play video games, right? Or Twitch or something like that. So my idea kind of basically became, what if I just randomly take all of these screenshots from games that I produce, some of them which are released, some of them which aren't, and essentially create a generative AI model from that. And then that would basically inform what I create for the collection. So the collection itself ended up being, it's called Press Escape. It ended up being inspired by a lot of, games that I produced, but then a lot of also retro games, dungeon crawlers. I don't know if you're a gamer, especially retro games, you'll sort of know what I'm talking about. But really the core point there that I would say is it was very interesting for me because I think similarly to what you said, it was I felt whereas a lot of my work, if you probably looked at my work for the past 10 years, a lot of what's been public facing and a lot of what's been actually gone up in galleries or been printed and stuff like that has actually been things that were rendered in 3D. And it was weird. I just had this feeling. I was a 3D collection doesn't represent now. It doesn't represent today. And actually more so it represents, I think, our moment now and today is actually to work with generative AI models. So it was interesting for me to sort of work through that process and feel I don't want to create something that feels outdated, right? I think there's a difference between something that feels nostalgic or whatever, references something that feels retro and versus something that feels outdated. And so I'm very, I would say very in tune with what's happening, especially in sort of I don't know, the art underground, but especially when it comes to things that are happening in the digital space and especially online. So for me, I said, it was just a moment of feeling well, a lot of the work that I was doing, we're sort of phasing out of that. So how do I sort of have my process be a part of this, but also feel something that represents our moment today? So.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. How about you, James? The most exciting project?
Well, one of the things I would also just want to mention, because I take a lot of inspiration from it, and I'm a huge fan of Mark's work, and I'd highly encourage everybody also to check out, it's sort of most easily findable under the moniker of Feltzine, which is this online collective space that Mark had created, where it's really very much about foregrounding the voices of artists, and in a lot of ways thinking about the practice of what we do at the ICA San Jose is inspired by a lot of models of that, where there's a sense of collective and really emphasizing foregrounding the vision of the artists themselves. I think probably one of the things I'm really proud of almost everything that we've done since I've started there, almost with a sense of as if they're each kind of children a little bit in a way. In terms of thinking about how we work with the artists, how we really made sure that we were creating space for them, and then also really making sure that those projects, whatever they were, led on to in some way the next opportunity, the next chance to tell a story, the next aspect of career development. Of all of those things, though, probably one of the ones that I'm most proud of is that we did this terrifically interesting, fully immersive installation of a mix of both a lot of 3D rendering and animation, but a lot of hand-tooled things, ceramics and otherwise, by a local Bay Area artist named Hisu Kwan. The response was utterly overwhelming. It really, and also, I mean, one of the things is we were a little concerned about the content, perhaps, because a lot of what she had done was that she did these scans and 3D renderings of her own body, often naked and often floating through and often from angles that would be considered intimate. But the response was cross-generationally and cross-culturally a real sense of finding a sense of belonging in that space that felt really, really meaningful. And then the latest and most satisfying development around it to a certain degree is that it also just opened at the Seoul Museum of Art in South Korea. So also seeing the work that we had done now on an international stage, now going to the next level and really creating that opportunity for a local artist to be able to reach out globally based on the work that we had commissioned through the ICA was profoundly satisfying.
Yeah.
I just want to say this because I'm going to totally forget. So thank you, first of all, for all the kind things that you've said about me. But I also just want to know, too, that like James said, we worked together for a long time. We've known him for a long time. He also changed my life in a lot of huge ways. And the way that I approach being an art professional, but also being an artist as well. So I just want to say that because there are other artists, especially in the Bay Area, like the one you just mentioned. I'm thinking about people like Adrian Burrell, who James has done amazing things for. And so I just also wanted to note that as well. If you're thinking or want to talk to someone who I think constantly has his pulse on maybe like who's next or making waves, I think, well, one, for a lot of artists of color, but I think two, just people who are connected to both community and art and also just make really good art. James is definitely the person. So I wanted to say that because you asked a really good question. I'm going to zone in on them. But so, yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to say that.
So, great. So I actually, so you guys all mentioned a lot of possibilities and showed us the examples, how you use like robotic, use their AI, immersive rendering. So I'm hanging out with a lot of engineers in the Bay Area, apparently, right? With the ChatGPT, Midjourney, DALL-E. And many engineers ask me, say, oh, probably it's like whether AI is going to replace artists one day. I'm sure a lot of audience today want to know. So actually I want to hear from James first because you are from the institution and you have been with a lot of amazing museums. So what's your opinion on this?
One of the things that really had come to my mind when we were thinking about coming together today, and then a second lesson that also comes to my mind that we heard from when we got started this morning. One of the things that sort of leapt out at me when I was trying to think about what we were going to be talking about today is this story, and I'm not a religious historian, I'm certainly not an Egyptologist. But one of the things that sort of came to me recently as I was touring through the Rosicrucian Museum down in San Jose, and I don't know if anybody's had an opportunity to visit the Rosicrucian. It's one of the greatest assets of the Bay Area. It's one of the largest collections of Egyptian artifacts west of the Mississippi. And one of the things is they've done this recreation of a mural from a tomb that was discovered. And the scene that it depicts is an Egyptian religious story, the idea that before you sort of move into the afterlife, your heart, which I think they thought was actually where most of the mental and emotional activity happened. So the heart was seen as being the center of the soul. That the heart is actually taken and given over to Osiris or something like that as you're about to make the potential passage. And then that item is placed into a machine. Well, it's just a weight. And on the other side is a feather. And that the idea is that, like, then the sort of the goodness of your life gets measured out in that moment, and it dictates how you make your way into the afterlife. The thing that I find really remarkable about it, and thinking about today and all of these activities, is the whole idea that machines and technology are so fundamental to how we understand our human existence and in the world. And it goes all the way back to thinking about how Egyptians thought about their most profound and spiritual measures. It wasn't something about being spoken with the gods or otherwise, but there was literally a machine, scales, a weight, a thing that was based on a certain kind of technology and understanding for measuring the world that was really inherent to what they how they perceived spiritually their own existence. And I'm not sure if I can unpack that more, but there's a lesson in there somewhere. And I think the idea of sharing stories and unpacking that together, I mean, I'd be curious to say, like, you know, what does that mean to you? Or what does that mean to you? And I think in the process of unpacking that, we'd find something. But somewhere within there is this lesson that, like, we've always had this relationship to machines as we think about our own sense of spirituality and place in the world. No, it won't be replacing anything. Indeed, if anything, I think it's just another tool. And I think Agnieszka's work, I mean, sort of tells this so beautifully, the way that she works with robots and really allows us to sort of explore what's our visual understanding very directly in relation to being created by machines. And then I think the other thing that really comes to my mind is we had this incredibly dynamic introductory presentation, and I don't know how many people were here for the kickoff, but with the incoming chancellor of the University of California, who, like an evangelist, was talking about VC and capital and all of these things. But at the end of midway through the presentation, he said, without his guitar, without his connection to art, he would be unmoored. That, like, he would be without purpose in life. And despite the fact that people were starting to leave and the microphone was changing, he insisted on playing his guitar. And then, sweetly and interesting, he ended up playing The Bare Necessities, which is one of my favorite songs. And it's also kind of sweet because actually one of the Sherman brothers, the second of the two Sherman brothers who did all the writing for the Jungle Book, just died. So it also felt like this sort of sweet tribute to one of the Sherman brothers. But now I'm going down a different road. Basically, I'm just saying I don't think it changes anything. And I think we've had this long-standing relationship to it. Although I wouldn't want to discount one of the presentations that I just heard earlier by one of the speakers who was with something called Gather Quest or something like that, who was talking about if we miss this opportunity to lose an understanding for humanity, we're really going to be losing something here. And I would point out for those people who are actually here in Berkeley, all of our local movie theaters have closed, with the exception of the Elmwood and the Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archives. So indeed, there is the chance for loss. We have just lost the Art Academy in Philadelphia. We were at risk of losing the Art Academy in San Francisco. And I think that thanks to setting up panels like these for these kinds of conversations, our need to continue to explore the creative and find those human threads that bind us together through our culture and storytelling is essential.
Thank you. I really love that. I know, like, James, like, every time, like, when we talk about this stuff, I know your passion is also, like, something, like, I have a lot of, like, but I try to let you guys talk more, and I want really the angle from Agnieszka as an artist. So I don't think you were saying, like, AI is going to replace you, and but how do you think your relationship with AI or with the tech, as James mentioned, just a tool?
Well, I admit I did automated myself out of my job as an artist because the robots are painting, not me. But I would love to reference the religion. I think religion aspect is very interesting. So aside from working with robotics, I do still paint sometimes, and I have a studio at SpaceX, and the work at SpaceX is very religious. And when we think about it, religion and technology, they use very similar forms of seduction. Of course, immortality is on front minds now, people working with technology, but also the duality, the sin and the redemption, the promise of a better future. So in the work at SpaceX, I explore all that, and visually I use gold leaf. I'm from Eastern Europe, from Poland, so I think about these paintings as modern icons. And we think about it when humanity, what we do when we worship, we build a cathedral. And in the past, the cathedral was actually a religious cathedral. Of course, going back to ancient Egypt, there was a different sort of worship. And from Eastern Europe, for us, cathedral right now is a shopping mall. We just love shopping. So, and of course, and right now the cathedral, I think, used to be Apple Store in America. Spaceship, interestingly, never became the cathedral. They really missed, pandemic changed everything, how we work. But the cathedral right now is truly in the heavens because it's a metaverse. So I love that, really, that connection, religion and technology, and I'm kind of excited. There's going to be, I'm sure, some religions coming from technology.
Wow, I really like that comment that we're building our generation's cathedral. So, Mark, what do you think? What kind of cathedral we're building now?
So I think, I would agree so much with what's said. I think maybe the angle that I can add to this from is like more of like the technical angle as someone who works in this space a lot. Here's the thing, right? Like Midjourney, OpenAI, all of the companies have the better AI, right? Especially when it comes to image generation. However, they also have a reason to be heavily censored. And for an artist, censorship that's not what we do, right? Like we're always trying to push the limits and, so that I think that says a lot, right? You can't really replace artists if as a company, you're worried about what people are going to produce, right? Like as an artist, nudity is not something that I'm afraid of. As an AI company, nudity is something that you're very afraid of us generating, right? For very good reasons. And I don't necessarily think that should change. Now you have the other side where you say, well, there's open source tools. Yeah, sure. But open source is always going to be behind what people are paid to create, right? So I think that like talking about there's that aspect of it around like, what can we actually make? And then you sort of need to be technical again to fill in the gap of what AI can't do. So I think even artists who are maybe worried about it from the like very technical aspect of what they do, I think that like in reality, when you start creating and producing, it's very hard to replace people because of just the actual real nature of how these things play out. So.
Yeah, wonderful. So I do want to follow up on that comment because artists actually have a very long-term battle with big companies. For example, I know there is artist committee actually negotiating with Instagram because they keep like censoring the artwork we're showing there, right? And also now, like Meta, they're using data, training their model, which without actually paying artists or let artists know. So from your guys' perspective, just in one sentence, because we're running, we have like 5 minutes left. So how do you think if it's the word you want to create from an art perspective, how are we going to balance and how can we collaborate with those tech giants? What kind of relationship you guys want to have? Who wants to go first? I know it's a spontaneous question.
I'll just jump in because I already have it. Here's what I would say. I think, well, this is kind of a plug for myself, but I didn't mean to do this, but you set me up. Like with Thozine, for instance, a lot of really what we do is trying to use our platform to actually bring a light to a lot of those artists who deal with that, right? Like I can think that there's actually an amazing AI artist who goes by, his ad on Instagram is King Kong 2K11, I think, or it might be whatever. But he's one of the best, I would say probably AI generative video artists in the world. He does like really amazing music videos and stuff. But his art is like currently being like really, I mean, like he's getting notices about his art that like Instagram's gonna stop basically showing it on people's feeds. And so like an artist like that, like I look at that and I say, well, like I want to support you. I want to push it forward. And so I think honestly it comes down to that for me. I think if there's anything like the change that I'd like to see, I really look at it. If anyone knows about this, there was a movement, like let's say like sort of before Instagram popped, called Weird Facebook, which I was very much a part of, which once again was like a very similar thing, like artists who just made a Facebook group because their art wasn't being seen and it was like very experimental digital art. So I think some of it is just being a champion of what you want to see. And I think you do that in a great way, right? Like giving a lot of artists their first major institutional shows. Sometimes it's also just about using the power, whatever you have, to like make a stance. And if we have a voice and we have a way to sort of show like it's really not that bad, just use your seat at the table, I would say. And I think that goes for things that are online with platforms and pretty much everything. It's sort of basic, but I truly do believe in it.
I'll be very brief. I think I would say that the question points out that we really as artists lowered ourselves to popularity contest. So to be driven by the desire to grow Instagram followers. I'm fault at that too, I am, because we want our work to be seen. But I think this is a good time for reflection to think actually why are you doing what you're doing as opposed to, again, looking for popularity. This is a moment in history that is all about narcissism. I like to say that, one more thing, I come from classical painting, from portraiture painting, and you think about portraiture, it represents also moments in history. It really shows this is the celebrity of the moment. And historically, of course, aristocracy, religion, Andy Warhol, brilliant about pop culture, again, Eastern Europe, working class. I grew up in communist, so working class. And right now, when you think about it, number one portion is a selfie. So we are obsessed with ourselves, and unfortunately, artists became that too. So maybe it's a moment for reflection, really.
Wonderful. So we are really running a little bit short on this panel. I know it's a really big topic. We probably can talk like forever, and we are all very passionate about that. But I do want to use the last 1 minute to mention some exciting project you are doing and probably want to share with our audience today.
The main thing I think that comes to my mind is that we have a big project that we're starting that we're going to launch in the spring. That's a collaboration with San Jose State's Cadre program, which as a digital arts program is actually as old as MIT's and one of the most important in the country, but slightly under-recognized, and I'm looking forward to drawing attention to some of that work.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I would just say, just come to the Asian Art Museum. We're trying like new fun stuff, honestly, just seriously. And then on the other end, I'm just like I said, I'm just excited to actually start rolling out some like indie games and stuff like that. So if you like to play art games, just like, I don't know, check us out, download them, but we'll have fun. So.
I'm excited about bringing the show to Beijing next year, and the excitement is because it's so inappropriate politically, and we're going to do it. So bringing the robots to Beijing is a very big lift, but it's super exciting.
Yeah, wonderful. So also a little announcement from us. We hopefully we can nail it. We're working on the show with Agnieszka in this September, and a robotic show. Amazing, very excited for that. And we probably can continue this conversation in our gallery, which is in San Francisco Design District. And I do want to close today's panel with an artwork I actually brought to our art exhibition. So one artist writes to say, the future is what we create today. So thanks for coming, everyone. We are all creating. Thank you.